Have you ever stopped to think if the car you drive today is moving you forward or keeping you financially stagnant? Because the truth is, almost no one buys a car thinking they're making a mistake. On the contrary, most people leave the dealership convinced they made a good choice, that they could afford it, that the payment fits their budget. But that's exactly where the silent mistake lies. A mistake that repeats itself every day and that few people notice while there's still time to correct it. The problem isn't the car, nor is it necessarily your income. The real problem lies in the emotional decision disguised as a rational choice. The mind looks at the payment, feels relief, feels pleasure, feels accomplishment. The heart races. The smell of a new car reinforces the feeling of progress, and logic only kicks in later, when it's too late. Have you ever been through this? Or do you know someone who has? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. Within the realm of personal finance, few consumer decisions are as emotionally charged as buying a car. It represents status, freedom, comfort, and reward. And that's precisely why it becomes one of the biggest financial traps of modern consumption. Not because it's expensive, but because it's financed incorrectly. For too long, compromising a portion of income that should be building the future instead of paying for past decisions. Many people believe they are being responsible because they got loan approval. Others are reassured because the bank said everything was fine. But approval doesn't mean financial health. It only means that someone assessed that you can pay, even if that ties you down for 5, 6, or even 7 years. The trap doesn't appear in the first month. It reveals itself in the accumulation, in the difficulty of saving money, in the constant financial strain, in the feeling of working hard and never getting anywhere. And here's a crucial point in financial psychology. Humans tend to underestimate the long-term impact when immediate pleasure is involved. That's why small installments seem harmless, even when added up over time, becoming a gigantic burden. That's why consumption decisions seem small today, but exact a high price tomorrow. Financial education isn't about cutting everything out. It's about understanding these traps before falling into them. There's a simple, objective, and powerful rule that separates those who use their car as a tool from those who become its slaves. A rule not created to stop you from buying, but to protect you from decisions that seem normal, but silently erode your financial freedom. Few people talk about it the right way, and even fewer understand the psychological impact it has on consumer decisions. What we're going to explore from here on out isn't just a rule of numbers, but a criterion for financial maturity, a way of seeing the car not as a status symbol, but as part of a larger strategy. And before we get into that, it's worth taking a close look at this silent mistake that almost everyone makes. Because understanding where you are now is the first step to not repeating the same cycle in the coming years. And as you listen to all this, perhaps a memory has already come to mind. Maybe a purchase that seemed harmless, a decision that was made with enthusiasm, but which over time began to weigh on you. This kind of reflection is important because financial education doesn't begin with spreadsheets. It begins with awareness. Every story is different, but the emotional pattern is usually the same, and that's exactly why sharing these experiences makes such a difference. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It could be a situation you've experienced, a question you have, or even a feeling that arose while you were listening to this. When you comment, you're not just talking to me, you're helping other people going through the same thing. Realize they're not alone. This space becomes a real exchange between real people trying to make better decisions. And if at any point this content made you think differently, it's worth liking the video. This simple gesture helps YouTube understand that this type of conversation needs to reach more people, especially those who are about to fall into these silent traps of consumerism. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and continue delivering content that doesn't underestimate the intelligence of those who are watching. Subscribing to the channel is also a way of saying that you want to continue on this journey of financial awareness, of making clearer and less impulsive choices. It's not about perfection, it's about evolution. With each video, the idea is to delve a little deeper, bring clarity, provoke reflection, and build, together, a healthier relationship with money, consumption, and the future. Now that this foundation is Clear, it's worth taking the next step and understanding why some simple rules can protect you from precisely those emotional mistakes that seem small at first, but make all the difference over the years. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding why car financing works so well as a psychological trap completely changes how you view this decision. And no, this has nothing to do with a lack of intelligence or irresponsibility. It has to do with how the human mind reacts to very well calculated stimuli behind the scenes of consumption. When you walk into a car dealership, everything is designed to shift your focus away from the big picture and place your attention on a single point: the monthly payment. It's not the total value of the car. It's not how much you'll pay at the end of the contract, nor the impact this will have on your financial journey. It's just the payment, small enough to generate relief, comfortable enough to seem secure. The mind loves this because it reduces the immediate pain of the decision. It's a feeling of control that in practice doesn't exist. At the same time, the second factor comes into play: immediate pleasure. The car is there, shining, ready to be driven away. The promise is emotional, not rational. Freedom, status, achievement, reward for all the effort you've already put in. The human mind has difficulty delaying pleasure, especially when it comes with social validation. This is where many financial decisions cease to be decisions and become reactions, not because the person doesn't know how to do the math, but because the emotional impact speaks louder at that moment. The third point is even more subtle: the aversion to waiting. Waiting to save more money, waiting to make a larger down payment, waiting to buy a car more compatible with current reality seems, to the brain, like a loss. Even when, rationally, it's a huge gain in the long run. Waiting is seen as frustration, while financing is sold as a solution. But this solution carries an invisible cost that only appears over time. And that's precisely where the hidden truth lies. The problem isn't the interest rate alone. Of course, it's a factor, but the real impact comes from time. The longer the financing, the more that car ceases to be a means and becomes a permanent financial burden. It takes up space in the budget, limits choices, delays investments, and creates the constant feeling that there's never enough money. The car starts to age, but the debt remains, influencing decisions far beyond the driving position. This is a trap built on predictable patterns of human behavior. Banks and dealerships don't bet on people's mathematical errors. They bet on psychology. They bet that you will prioritize the present, minimize the future, and accept as normal something that, deep down, compromises your financial transformation. When you understand this, something changes. Guilt disappears, and awareness takes its place. It's not about punishing yourself for past decisions. It's about seeing the mechanisms to avoid repeating the cycle. This realization changes your mindset. You start to see funding not as access, but as a long-term commitment. You begin to question whether that immediate pleasure is worth years of silent impact. And this kind of clarity doesn't come out of nowhere. It arises when you understand how decisions are shaped, how things work behind the scenes, and why so many intelligent people end up stuck in the same place. If all of this resonates with you in some way, comment below. This makes sense to me. This simple phrase already shows that you've begun to see this decision in a new light. And from here, this journey of awareness begins to take a new direction. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because after understanding the psychological aspects of financing, an almost immediate need for clarity arises. When the mind realizes there's a trap, it naturally asks, so what is the right criterion? What is the real limit between using money to my advantage and being used by it? It is precisely at this point that the 420 out of 10 rule comes in, not as an opinion, but as a rational filter amidst the emotional noise of consumer decisions. The strength of this rule lies in its simplicity. It doesn't depend on complex calculations or outlandish predictions about the future. It exists to give back something that traditional financing often takes away from people: the feeling of control. 20% down payment means you're not making an impulsive decision. It means there was preparation, planning, conscious waiting. The down payment isn't just money put into the business, it's an emotional brake that prevents immediate desire from taking the wheel. The 4-year financing limit plays another crucial role in this journey. It directly confronts the illusion that extending the term makes life easier. In practice, long terms only postpone the impact, spreading the burden over a longer period, and normalizing a debt that becomes part of the routine. When the term is short, the car ceases to be an eternal commitment and returns to being what it should be, a means, not an end. This changes the mindset because it forces the alignment of expectation with reality, desire with possibility. The limit of up to 10% of monthly income committed to a car protects something that almost never comes up in conversations at the dealership: the rest of your life. Housing, food, leisure, investments, peace of mind. The car cannot compete with all of that. When it exceeds this limit, it begins to steal space from future choices, even if it seems manageable today. This is one of the hidden truths of modern consumption. Small monthly concessions generate large accumulated impacts over the years. The most important point is to understand that the 4-20-10 rule wasn't created to limit dreams or impose senseless austerity. It exists to preserve freedom. Freedom to change plans, to navigate unforeseen events, to invest in other areas of life without carrying a constant burden. Following the rule doesn't mean buying less, it means buying better, consciously and in alignment with a long-term vision. When a person adopts this criterion, something changes internally. Decisions cease to be reactive and become strategic. The car stops representing status and starts representing coherence. This generates a silent but profound transformation in how money is viewed and used. It's not about giving up, it's about choosing with maturity. And this clarity brings peace because it eliminates the constant doubt about whether the decision was right or not. This rule works precisely because it removes emotion from the center of the decision and sets a clear, objective limit that protects the financial journey as a whole. It's not a magic formula, it's a point of balance between desire and responsibility. And when you understand this, you realize that many choices that previously seemed normal begin to lose meaning, opening space for decisions more aligned with who you want to become over time. If this explanation brought clarity to your life, comment below. I'm on this journey too. This simple gesture already shows that your perspective on financial decisions is undergoing an important change, and this change paves the way for a deeper understanding of the real impact of this rule on daily life. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because understanding the psychology behind the 24-10 rule is where the real mental shift happens. Up to this point, it may seem like just a set of well-organized numbers, but in practice, this rule works because it directly attacks the emotional errors that sabotage important financial decisions. It doesn't fight the desire to own a car. It reorganizes how that desire is processed by the mind. When a rule requires a 20% down payment, it's not just reducing the amount financed, it's creating a gap between impulse and decision. This space is crucial. It's where emotion loses its power and conscience gains voice. Saving this amount requires time, planning, and patience, and this automatically filters decisions made in the heat of the moment. Many purchases don't happen, not because the car isn't good, but because the desire doesn't survive the process. This is one of the most important revelations of financial education. Not every desire needs to be fulfilled for life too. Move forward. The second point, the 4-year limit, combats an even more dangerous trap: the normalization of perpetual debt. Long terms make the commitment seem light in the present, but heavy in its accumulated impact. By shortening the time, the rule forces an uncomfortable, yet necessary question. Does this car really fit into my current reality? Or am I trying to live a lifestyle I haven't yet built? This question changes decisions. It realigns expectations, reduces self-deception, and prevents the car from becoming a silent anchor on the financial journey. The limit on car payments, up to 10% of income, protects something that is almost never considered in depth: lifestyle as a whole. When this limit is respected, the car ceases to compete with rest, leisure, security, and investment. It occupies the correct space, without encroaching on areas that support emotional balance and mental tranquility. This protection is invisible in the short term, but extremely powerful. Over the years, this is where the real impact of the rule begins to appear. The central point is that the 4-20-10 rule wasn't created to control numbers, but to protect people from themselves during moments of heightened emotional vulnerability. Following it is an act of respect for one's own future. It's understanding that the me of today tends to overvalue immediate pleasure, while the me of tomorrow bears the consequences. This rule creates a silent agreement between these two versions of Yourself, setting healthy boundaries where before there was only impulse. When this mindset takes hold, something profoundly changes. Decisions cease to be justified by phrases like, "everyone does it," or "I'll look into it later." They become guided by consistency, not comparison. The car stops being a symbol of success and becomes simply a functional choice within a larger plan. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but once it begins, it spreads to other areas of financial life. And it's precisely at this point that the rule ceases to be just about cars and becomes about identity, maturity, and long-term vision. When you understand why it works, you realize it's not about rigidity, but about freedom built with awareness. If this reflection is resonating within you, comment, "This makes sense to me." This simple phrase already shows that something important has begun to change. And from here, the impact of this choice becomes even clearer. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding what truly changes in your life when you respect the 4-20-10 rule is where everything starts to make sense in a practical, emotional, and almost immediate way. Here, the discourse moves from theory to the real impact of daily life, the kind you feel every month when your salary hits your account and decisions start to appear. When the rule is ignored, the pattern tends to remain the same. The person frequently changes cars, but never feels like they've made progress. Installments consume a large portion of their income. The budget is always tight, and any unforeseen event becomes a source of anxiety. There's a constant feeling of running, but not getting anywhere. The car changes, the model improves slightly, but the financial pressure remains. And along with it comes a silent feeling of guilt, that inner voice saying that perhaps the decision wasn't such a good one after all. Even if externally everything seems normal, this burden isn't just financial, it's mental. Long-term debt accompanies every choice, limits invitations, postpones plans, and creates a permanent tension that often isn't even directly associated with the car. But it's there, influencing bigger decisions. It's a journey of continuous effort to maintain something that should make life easier, not more complicated. This is one of the hidden truths of modern consumption. When a decision dominates the budget, it begins to dominate the mind as well. On the other hand, when the 24-10 rule is respected, the scenario changes almost silently, but profoundly. Financial leeway emerges. There's room to breathe, to deal with unforeseen events without panic, to plan more calmly. The car ceases to be a constant worry and becomes just part of the routine. Stress decreases, not because the person earns more, but because decisions have been aligned with reality. This difference seems small at first, but the accumulated impact over time is transformative. With financial leeway, options arise. Options to invest, to travel, to change plans without everything falling apart. The future ceases to be a threatening place and becomes a space of possibilities. This change alters the mindset. The person begins to realize that financial freedom is not linked to ostentation, but to coherent choices made consciously. It is an internal transformation that reflects externally in more tranquility, less comparison, and more clarity about what really matters. And perhaps the most important point of this shift is realizing that the car doesn't need to be the center of financial decisions. It should serve life, facilitate travel, and offer comfort within healthy limits. When it goes beyond that, it ceases to be a tool and becomes an obstacle. Respecting this rule is a constant reminder that money is a means to build a better life, not an end in itself or an instrument of validation. When this awareness sets in, many other decisions begin to be questioned naturally. The person starts to see patterns, recognize excesses, and adjust course, not out of fear, but out of maturity. It is at this point that the financial journey ceases to be reactive and becomes intentional, guided by choices that respect the present without sacrificing the future. If this contrast made sense to you, comment below. This makes sense to me. This simple phrase shows that you've already begun to see your decisions more clearly, and this clarity is exactly what opens the way to further deepen the impact of this rule on your daily life. If you've made it this far, it's because this conversation touched on some real aspect of your life. It wasn't just about cars, rules, or numbers. It was about decisions, mindset, and the silent impact that seemingly simple choices have along the way. If this content helped you see all of this more clearly, it makes sense to stick around. Subscribing to the channel is the easiest way to follow this kind of practical, direct, and useful reflection. which doesn't judge, but helps you make better decisions. If you felt this message was for you, leave a comment below. Write something like, "This message was for me," or "I'm with you until the end." This type of comment creates a real connection, shows that you not only watched but reflected along with us, and helps this space continue to be a point of honest exchange about money and choices. And if at any point in this video you felt it made sense, that it connected with your reality, feel free to leave a like, not as a favor, but as a sign that this conversation was worth the time of those watching and deserves to reach more people who are also trying to make better decisions. There's a video over here that perfectly complements this topic and delves even deeper into this line of thought. Click on it and continue with me there, because this journey of financial awareness doesn't end here. It only starts to become clearer from here on out.